The summer heat was suffocating inside the garage, but that's where they put me. Through the small window, I could see my family laughing in the garden of Harrison Estate, our ancestral home of 4 generations. My brother Marcus's new Porsche took up most of the space, leaving me a small cot between boxes of Christmas decorations and old furniture. The garage is good enough for you, Dad had announced earlier, his voice carrying that familiar tone of disappointment. We need the guest rooms for people who actually contribute to this family. I'm James Davidson, 32 years old, and according to my family, the biggest disappointment in the Davidson dynasty. 6 years ago, I walked away from our family's investment firm to play with computers, as my father puts it. Today they were celebrating my father's 60th birthday, combined with our annual family reunion. The party was in full swing. Through the window, I could see Uncle Robert, our family patriarch, holding court near the fountain. His 3 sons, my cousins Thomas, William, and Peter, stood around him like perfectly groomed soldiers in their designer suits. My brother Marcus was there too, proudly showing off his new watch, probably another gift from Dad for maintaining the family legacy. My phone buzzed. A message from my assistant, Mr. Davidson, the papers are ready. Kingston Investments signed off on the final acquisition. You now officially own 51% of Davidson Financial Group through the shell companies. I smiled, putting the phone away. 6 years of careful planning was about to pay off. When I left Davidson Financial, I didn't just leave to play with computers. I founded Nova Technologies, now valued at $4.2 billion, but that's not even the best part. Through a series of carefully structured holdings and shell companies, I've been systematically acquiring shares in my family's company, and as of today, I owned the controlling interest. James, my sister Victoria's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. She stood at the garage door, her Chanel suit impeccable as always. Mom says you can come eat now. Use the side entrance to the kitchen. We don't want you going through the main house. I nodded, following her out. Victoria had always been the perfect one. Harvard Business School, married to a state senator, 2 perfect children. She managed our family's charitable foundation, which mostly involved organizing galas where rich people could feel good about themselves. The kitchen was empty except for Maria, our housekeeper of 20 years. She gave me a warm smile and a plate of food. I saved you the good stuff, Mr. James. Don't listen to them, this is still your home too. If she only knew how right she was. I sat at the small kitchen table, eating quietly while watching the party through the window. My father was making a speech, probably about family legacy and tradition. The same speech he gave when he cut off my trust funds 6 years ago. A Davidson man works in finance, he had declared. This computer nonsense is beneath our family name. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Harrison Securities, confirming that their team would arrive at midnight. Perfect timing, right after Dad's birthday speech, when everyone would be too full of wine and self-importance to leave early. The afternoon dragged on. I could hear snippets of conversation through the kitchen window. Uncle Robert bragging about his new yacht, Cousin Thomas discussing his hedge fund's latest acquisition, my brother Marcus announcing his promotion to senior partner. Did you hear about James? I heard my Aunt Margaret's voice. Still playing with his little computer company. Such a shame, all that education wasted. If they had bothered to read any tech news in the past year, they might have noticed Nova Technologies' meteoric rise. But the Davidsons only read financial papers, and I had deliberately kept my name out of the press, using holding companies and maintaining a low profile. At 7 p.m., Maria brought me a slice of birthday cake. Your father asked if you've reconsidered his offer, she said quietly. Ah yes, the offer. Last month, Dad had graciously proposed that I could return to Davidson Financial, starting in the mailroom of course to learn humility. Tell him I'm still thinking about it, I replied, suppressing a smile. The sun was setting when I heard raised voices from the main house. Through the window, I could see Marcus and Thomas in what appeared to be a heated discussion. I knew what it was about. The missing client files, the irregular transactions, the offshore accounts. They would find out soon enough that their attempts to hide their misconduct had failed. At 11:30 p.m., I changed into my suit. Tom Ford, not that anyone in my family would notice. I had kept it carefully pressed in the garage, along with my briefcase containing all the necessary documentation. James, my mother's voice called from the house. We're having a family meeting in the main hall. Your father insists you attend. Perfect timing. The main hall of Harrison Estate was impressive. Crystal chandeliers, oil paintings of Davidson patriarchs, antique furniture that had been in our family for generations. Everyone was gathered there, looking slightly tipsy from the celebration. James, my father began, standing in front of the massive fireplace. We've been discussing the future of Davidson Financial and more importantly this estate. I stood quietly, noting how they had arranged themselves. The successful family members on the plush sofas, while I was left standing by the door. The company is entering a new phase, Dad continued. We're planning to take it public next year. Marcus will be leading the IPO as the new CEO. My brother smirked from his position next to Dad. As for this estate, Dad went on, we've decided it's time to sell. The maintenance costs are too high, and since you clearly can't contribute, he let the sentence hang. I checked my watch, 11:58 p.m. That's actually why I wanted to talk to all of you. I said quietly, unless you've suddenly become a millionaire. Marcus laughed, I don't think you have anything to contribute to this discussion. 11:59 p.m. Actually, I began, but was interrupted by the sound of vehicles approaching. Right on schedule. Through the large windows, we could see 3 black SUVs pulling up to the house. Men in security uniforms emerged, led by a woman in a sharp business suit. What's the meaning of this? Uncle Robert demanded. The front door opened, and Sarah Chen, my head of security, entered the hall. Good evening, Mr. Davidson, she said to me, ignoring the others. The property has been secured as requested. What property? Who are you? My father sputtered. I opened my briefcase and removed a folder. As of 3 months ago, Harrison Estate is owned by Nova Holdings, a subsidiary of Nova Technologies. I paused, letting that sink in. My company. The silence was deafening. That's impossible, Marcus said. The estate is owned by Davidson Financial. Was owned, I corrected him. Along with 51% of Davidson Financial itself, which I now control through various holdings. I handed the folder to my father, watching as his hands trembled while reading the documents. While you were all busy mocking my little computer company, I continued. Nova Technologies grew to become one of the largest tech firms in the country. Current valuation, $4.2 billion. Victoria had sunk into a chair, her perfect composure cracking. Uncle Robert was frantically checking something on his phone, probably finally reading about Nova Technologies. As for the irregularities in Davidson Financial's accounts, I added, looking directly at Marcus and Thomas. The SEC will be very interested in those offshore transactions you've been hiding. You wouldn't, Marcus whispered. We're family. Family. I laughed softly. Was it family when you made me sleep in the garage? When you cut off my trust fund? When you mocked everything I tried to build? I turned to Sarah. Please escort everyone out. They can return tomorrow to collect their personal belongings. You can't do this. My father shouted. This is our home. No, Dad, I replied calmly. It's my home, and it's time for some changes in the Davidson family. As security began leading them out, I stopped Maria. Please stay, I said. Your position here is secure, with a substantial raise. She smiled, tears in her eyes. I always knew you were special, Mr. James. I watched from the front steps as my family was escorted to their cars. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, negotiations, and probably threats. But tonight I stood in front of my home, finally able to drop the mask I'd worn for 6 years. My phone buzzed one last time. A news alert about Nova Technologies' latest acquisition. Tomorrow the business world would wake up to headlines about the tech company that had secretly acquired one of the oldest financial firms in the city. But tonight I walked up to my father's, my study, poured myself a glass of his favorite scotch, and sat in the leather chair behind the massive oak desk. On the wall hung portraits of Davidson patriarchs, stern-faced men in expensive suits who had built and maintained the family legacy. Time to add a new portrait, one of a man who built his own legacy, in his own way. The morning sun streamed through the study's windows as I reviewed the documents spread across the desk. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Calls from family lawyers, messages from business reporters, and increasingly desperate texts from family members. The first knock came at 8 a.m. sharp. Maria appeared at the door, Mr. James, your brother Marcus is at the gate. He's quite insistent about entering. I pulled up the security feed on my tablet. Marcus stood at the gate in yesterday's rumpled suit, his perfect hair disheveled. Quite a change from his usual polished appearance. Let him in, I said. Have security escort him to the study. 5 minutes later, Marcus burst through the door, his face red with anger. You smug little bastard, he snarled. Do you have any idea what you've done? I leaned back in our father's chair, keeping my voice calm. Actually, I do. Would you like to discuss the $47 million you've been embezzling through those Cayman accounts? The color drained from his face. How did you? No, I finished for him. I've had a team tracking every transaction at Davidson Financial for the past 3 years, including that interesting transfer you made last month to pay off your gambling debts. Marcus collapsed into one of the leather chairs. The SEC will be very interested, I agreed. Unless we reach an arrangement. He looked up sharply. What kind of arrangement? I slid a folder across the desk. Your resignation from Davidson Financial, effective immediately. In exchange, Nova Technologies' legal team ensures those transactions never come to light. You're blackmailing me. I prefer to think of it as negotiating with family, I replied, using the same words he'd used when threatening to cut off my funding 6 years ago. Marcus flipped through the documents, his hands shaking. And if I refuse? I pulled up an email on my screen. Then this evidence goes to the SEC at noon. Your choice, brother. The scratch of his pen signing the papers was the only sound in the room. As security led him out, he turned back. I never thought you had it in you. That was always your problem, Marcus. You never thought at all. By 10 a.m., Victoria arrived, looking immaculate as always despite the early hour. Unlike Marcus, she walked in calmly, settling into a chair with practiced grace. I assume you're here to negotiate, I said. Naturally, she crossed her legs, smoothing her skirt. The foundation's annual gala is next week. Over 300 of the city's most influential people will be there. It would be unfortunate if they had to find a new venue. I couldn't help but laugh. Still trying to maintain appearances, Vicky. This isn't a joke, James. These people depend on the foundation's work. You mean they depend on the tax write-offs and networking opportunities? I pulled out another folder. I've reviewed the foundation's books. Only 12% of donations actually reach charitable causes. The rest goes to administrative costs, including your $500,000 salary. Victoria's perfect composure cracked slightly. What do you want? A complete restructuring of the foundation. New board, new management, minimum 80% of donations to actual charitable work. You can stay on as a regular board member, but leadership goes to someone who cares about more than social status. You're destroying everything our family built, she whispered. No, I'm fixing what our family broke. I handed her the papers. You have until the end of the day to decide. She left without signing, but I knew she would. Victoria's social standing meant too much to her to risk a public scandal. The next visitor surprised me. Uncle Robert arrived at noon, but instead of coming to the study, he asked to meet in the garden. I found him by the old oak tree where we used to play as children. You know, he said without turning around, your grandfather used to say you reminded him of himself. We all thought he was going soft in his old age. Grandfather built Davidson Financial from nothing, I replied. Dad and you just maintained it. And you? He finally faced me. What are you building, James? Something new, something that actually matters. He nodded slowly. The others won't understand. They can't see past their own reflections in their golden mirrors. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. Your grandfather left this for you. I was supposed to give it to you when you were ready. I think that time is now. Inside was a letter, dated just before his death. Dear James, if you're reading this, you've finally done what I always hoped you would. Broken free from the golden cage we built around our family. The Davidsons were never meant to be just bankers and investors. We were meant to build, to create, to look forward instead of back. I've watched you with your computers, seeing the same fire I once had. The others will try to extinguish it, to mold you into their image of what a Davidson should be. Don't let them. In my safe combination, December 24, 1947. You'll find something that might help you on your path. Build something worthy, grandson. Love, Edward Davidson. Uncle Robert handed me a key. The safe is in the library. Whatever's in there, he wanted you to have it. After he left, I went to the library. Behind the portrait of my grandfather, the old safe waited. Inside, I found stock certificates and property deeds, my grandfather's personal holdings, separate from Davidson Financial. The total value today would be close to $500 million. But more importantly, I found his old journal, detailing how he built the company from scratch, fighting against the established firms that tried to crush him. He'd been an outsider too, once. The afternoon brought more visitors, cousins trying to protect their positions, aunts attempting to guilt me with family tradition, even our family's old lawyer, trying to find legal loopholes. Each left empty-handed. As evening approached, the last visitor arrived, my father. He stood in the study doorway, looking older than he had yesterday. Your mother won't leave her room, he said quietly. She's crying about losing her home. She doesn't have to leave, I replied. Neither do you, but things will be different now. Different how? Davidson Financial will merge with Nova Technologies. We'll keep the name for the financial division, but the company will focus on financial technology, blockchain development, digital banking, the future, not the past. He walked to the window, looking out at the garden, where he'd taught me to ride a bike, where he'd once been proud of me. And my role in this future, advisory board member. No executive power, but your experience could be valuable, if you're willing to learn new ways. And if I refuse, then you'll retire with a generous pension, and the knowledge that your son built something bigger than you ever imagined. He turned, and for the first time in years, really looked at me. When did you become so strong? I always was. You just couldn't see it, because it didn't fit your vision of strength. He nodded slowly. Your grandfather would be proud. He walked to the door, then paused. Will you at least let your mother redecorate? She never liked your grandfather's taste in furniture. I couldn't help but smile. We can discuss it over dinner. Family dinner, like we used to have. If you're interested. I'd like that, he said softly, and for the first time since I was a child, I saw my father's eyes shine with tears. After he left, I sat in the growing darkness, reading my grandfather's journal. On the last page, he'd written the true measure of success isn't in what you build, but in whether you can build it without losing yourself. I looked around the study, at the portraits of Davidson men who had come before me. Tomorrow the business world would be buzzing about the tech genius who had orchestrated one of the biggest silent takeovers in recent history. But tonight, I was just a boy who had finally found his way home, on his own terms. My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. The press release is ready for tomorrow. Time to show the world who James Davidson really is. I texted back, schedule the announcement for 9 a.m. It's time for some daylight. The morning headlines exploded across every major financial news outlet. Tech prodigy reveals silent takeover of family empire. Nova Technologies CEO James Davidson acquires controlling stake in Davidson Financial. The rise of Silicon Valley's hidden billionaire. I stood in the Davidson Financial lobby watching employees hurry in, their phones buzzing with notifications. The massive screens that usually displayed stock tickers now showed the joint press release. Nova Technologies and Davidson Financial announcing their historic merger. Sarah appeared at my side, tablet in hand. The stock is up 27% since the announcement. The market loves the idea of traditional banking meeting cutting-edge tech. And the other matter? I asked quietly. SEC investigators are already at Marcus's office. Thomas and the others involved in the offshore accounts are being questioned. The elevator opened and a stream of board members rushed out, heading for the emergency meeting I'd called. Their faces showed a mix of shock, anger, and most importantly, fear. In the boardroom, I took my place at the head of the table, my father's old seat. The board members, many of whom had mocked my computer hobby for years, now sat in uncomfortable silence. Gentlemen, I began. I'm sure you've all seen the news. Let me be clear about what happens next. I nodded to Sarah, who distributed tablets to everyone. On your screens, you'll find the restructuring plan. Davidson Financial isn't just merging with Nova Technologies, we're revolutionizing it. The oldest board member, Mr. Harrison, spoke up. This is preposterous. You can't just walk in here and I can, and I am. I cut him off. As majority shareholder, I'm implementing a complete overhaul. Our new focus will be financial technology, blockchain banking, AI-driven investment platforms, and digital asset management. But our traditional clients, another board member protested, will have access to services that put us decades ahead of our competitors. I pulled up a presentation on the main screen. Nova's banking algorithm has outperformed human traders by 43% over the past year. Our blockchain platform has reduced transaction costs by 89%. This isn't just a merger, it's evolution. The room erupted in arguments and protests until I raised my hand. You have two options. Adapt and be part of this transformation, or take your golden parachutes and leave. You have until the end of the day to decide. By lunch, my email was flooded with resignations from the old guard. Perfect. I already had a new team ready to step in. Young innovators who understood the future of finance. My father appeared in my new office around 2. He looked tired but more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. Your mother wants to know if you're coming for dinner, he said. She's ordered from that Italian place you used to love. The press conference first, I replied. Then dinner. He nodded, looking around what used to be his office. You know, I never told you, but I was terrified when I took over from your grandfather. Thought I'd never live up to his legacy. And now? Now I realize maybe I was too focused on preserving his legacy instead of building my own. He straightened his tie. Do you need someone to stand with you at the press conference? I looked at him, surprised. You want to? I'm still your father, even when I didn't understand you. I never stopped being that. The press conference was held in the Davidson Financial lobby. Cameras flashed as I took the podium. My father standing proudly behind me. For generations, I began. The Davidson name has been synonymous with financial stability and tradition. Today, we're writing a new chapter. By combining Davidson Financial's century of experience with Nova Technologies' innovation, we're creating something unprecedented. A financial institution built for the future. The questions came rapid fire. What about the allegations of financial misconduct? Will traditional banking services continue? How will this affect current employees? I handled each one calmly, outlining our transition plan, our commitment to ethical banking, and our vision for the future. When asked about the family drama, I simply said, every family business goes through evolution. We're just making sure ours moves forward, not backward. After the conference, I found Victoria waiting in my office. She placed a folder on my desk. The signed foundation restructuring agreement. I talked to some of the real charity organizations we've worked with. She said, they're ideas for actual community impact. They're not bad. You could do real good, Vicky. Not just social good. She managed a small smile. Maybe it's time I did both. The day ended with family dinner at the estate. Mother had indeed ordered from Vincenzo's. And for the first time in years, we sat around the table without pretense or performance. The gardens need updating, Mother said between bites of pasta. If we're modernizing everything else, we should make them more sustainable. I've been reading about vertical gardening. I caught my father hiding a smile behind his wine glass. Change was happening, even in the smallest ways. After dinner, I retreated to the study with my grandfather's journal. A new entry caught my eye. One I'd missed before. Power isn't about control. It's about creation. Any fool can tear things down. But building something new, something that lasts, that's the real legacy. My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. Final numbers for the day: stock up 34%. Social media sentiment, 82% positive. Over 500 partnership inquiries from tech firms. I sent a quick reply. Schedule a strategy meeting for tomorrow. Time to build something new. Looking out the study window at the garden, where my mother was already planning her sustainable redesign, I realized that sometimes coming home doesn't mean returning to what was, it means creating what should have been all along. The Davidson legacy wasn't ending. It was finally beginning. 1 year later, the annual Davidson Technology and Finance Summit was in full swing, transforming the estate's grounds into a showcase of innovation. Where stuffy banker parties once dominated, Now tech entrepreneurs and financial innovators mingled under sustainable solar canopies. My mother's idea, along with the vertical gardens that had become the talk of architectural magazines. I stood on the balcony, watching the future unfold below. The Davidson-Nova merger had exceeded even my optimistic projections. Our digital banking platform had revolutionized the industry, while our AI-driven investment systems had democratized wealth management for millions. Your grandfather would have loved this, my father said, joining me at the railing. He'd adapted better than anyone expected, throwing himself into learning about blockchain and digital currencies. These days he taught seminars to traditional bankers about embracing technological change. Marcus gets out next month, he added quietly. The investigation into the offshore accounts had led to a short prison sentence for my brother. He'd taken a plea deal, and more importantly, he'd shown genuine remorse. I know, I replied. I've arranged a position for him in our compliance department. Seemed fitting. Father nodded approvingly. Below us, Victoria was leading a group of nonprofit leaders through a presentation about the Foundation's new digital donation platform. She'd found her calling in connecting charitable organizations with technological solutions, increasing their efficiency and impact. Mr. Davidson. Sarah appeared at the door. They're ready for your keynote. The main stage had been set up where the old fountain used to be. As I took my place at the podium, I saw faces both old and new. Uncle Robert, who now headed our traditional client relations department, sat beside one of our youngest blockchain developers. The contrast would have been unthinkable a year ago. A year ago, I began. I stood in our company lobby and promised a revolution in finance. Today I'm proud to announce that Davidson Nova isn't just changing banking. We're changing lives. The screens behind me displayed our achievements. Millions of new customers accessing financial services through our mobile platform. Thousands of small businesses funded through our AI-driven loan program. Hundreds of charities empowered by our digital tools. But our greatest achievement isn't in the numbers, I continued. It's in proving that tradition and innovation aren't enemies. They're partners. That family legacy isn't about preserving the past, but building a better future. After the speech, I found Maria arranging refreshments in the study, now a museum showcasing both Davidson Financial's history and Nova's technological innovations. Your grandfather's portrait arrived, she said, gesturing to the wall. There it hung. Not the stern banking portrait of tradition, but a photo of him at his desk, sleeves rolled up, working on the company's first computer system in 1976. Beside it hung a touchscreen displaying our family tree, updated in real time with each member's contribution to the new Davidson Nova legacy. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Reviewed the compliance training materials. Have some suggestions for improvement. Can we talk next month? Progress comes in many forms. That evening, after the summit ended, the family gathered for dinner, our new tradition. Mother had insisted on keeping this part of our heritage, though now the conversations ranged from cryptocurrency to sustainable agriculture. James, Victoria called from across the table. The Foundation's education initiative is ready to launch. We're providing coding classes in underfunded schools, using grandfather's old journal as inspiration. Father added, building something worthy, just as he said. I looked around the table, at my family. Broken and rebuilt, traditional and modern. Past and future merged into something stronger than before. Even the empty chair waiting for Marcus spoke of hope rather than shame. Later in the study, I opened my grandfather's journal one last time, adding my own entry beneath his final words. The true measure of success isn't in what you build, but in how it builds others. The Davidson legacy isn't in our name or our wealth. It's in our capacity to change, to grow, and to lift others as we rise. The garage where they once made me sleep now houses a tech incubator for underprivileged youth. The halls where I was shunned now echo with innovation and possibility. This is what coming home really means. Not returning to what was, but creating what should be. My phone buzzed one final time that night. A message from our global team. Davidson Nova's digital banking platform, just launched in its 50th country, breaking down barriers, building up dreams. I smiled, thinking of the boy in the garage, The family that couldn't see his worth. And the grandfather who'd known all along that sometimes the best legacy is the one you build yourself. Looking out at the estate's gardens, now illuminated by sustainable lights and dotted with charging stations for visitors' electric vehicles, I realized that success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. The Davidson name would continue, but not as a symbol of old money and exclusion. Instead, it would stand for innovation, inclusion, and the endless possibilities that come when tradition and progress dance together. This was my legacy, not built in spite of my family, but because of them, through them, and ultimately for them. End of story.